So like the show is done. Thank you for listening, I guess. Why do you keep giving us your time? Send me an email. Welcome everyone to another great episode of the Do Better Dev Show. I'm here with Nathan, our resident certified expert extraordinaire, AWS something. And how are you doing today, Nathan?
Oh, never better. I just feel so warm and fuzzy every time you mention my AWS certification. It's a real honor to be here, Gyan. Thanks for having me on the show as the other co-host.
Of course. I mean, if it weren't for your qualifications, I wouldn't have you.
Ooh, that makes the first few months really awkward.
Yeah, desperate times. I mean, we looked at the potential you had.
I appreciate that. Yeah, you can see through my lack of knowledge.
Yeah. I mean, I just...
It explains the topics, why we didn't talk about AWS till recently.
Exactly. I was in it for the long haul.
Mm-hmm.
I just wanted to test it out, see the playing field, and now that you're certified, and we're gonna make all these videos and episodes, and then sell them because we need that cash.
Yeah, sell that free content.
Yeah. Well, it's only free because nobody pays us for it.
Right. Okay, valid. Yep.
Yeah.
I see where you're going with this.
Yeah, it won't be free when we launch a GoFundMe, a PayPal, anything that allows them to give us money.
Right. It's still free, but kind of like a reimbursement strategy. It's like
Exactly. Yeah.
It's like those people at the beach that try to give you some jewelry and then they ask you to pay for it. It's like that, except with content. But
Yeah.
you have some of that free content. You like that? You want some more? Pay us. But also the
Exactly.
next content's free too. But you have to then hopefully keep paying us.
Exactly. Yeah. It's an excellent business model.
The whole model is
customer
weird.
gets
'Cause
what they
everybody
want.
does this, but it's a bit weird.
Yeah. I mean, the part about payments becomes less relevant then because they already have the items, but maybe they'll feel it in their soul. Maybe they'll just be like, this is what's right.
Yeah, reciprocity.
Yeah,
How to win
these
friends,
two
influence
guys
people.
waste my hour once a week. I should pay them for this.
Yeah.
And then, yeah.
Yeah, if I were a good person, I'd be paying a lot of podcasters on their GoFundMes and, well, I guess not GoFundMes, Patreons.
Mm.
But I don't.
So
just
what you're saying is you're not a good person.
Nope, I just listen to their ads and think, oh, sure it would be nice if I didn't have to listen to these ads, but not for $5 a month.
Are we then good people because we don't have ads?
We're not doing the right things, I think, on our end.
We're broke on the business end. We're not even broke on the consumer side. We're just can't even support ads for our show.
Oh well.
Yeah, the revenue needed to start a revenue stream is way too much for us.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The real truth of it all is just it's an excuse to have a conversation once a week about dumb tech stuff. So
That's true. Speaking of dumb tech stuff, we're going to talk about S3. But before we do that,
shots
tell
fired.
us your dumb cool stuff.
So I wrote down two cool things while I was waiting at the dentist because I went to the dentist before this call. Also,
Was it at 2:30?
What?
Was your appointment at 2:30?
Is this a reference I'm missing?
Oh, it's a famous dentist pun because 2:30 sounds like 2:30.
Oh.
Well,
I'm not the connoisseur of puns that one
All
of us
right.
is. So
anyways.
anyway, I had this moment which I haven't had before. I think they just were playing either a different playlist thing I'm used to at the dentist office or something. But California Girl played and Barbie Girl played, just these real poppy songs. And at one point, she's scraping my teeth, and that's playing, and she's singing to herself, and they're humming, and I had that image of Doctor Strange where he's just performing surgery on the guy's brain while they're listening to pop songs, and he's saying what year they came out. And I was like, this is a weird, because I've been at the dentist many times since watching Doctor Strange, and that's never come to mind. But for some reason, that combination of things, I was like, this feels very, very like that moment. But I wrote these down, as I said, while I was waiting at the dentist. And two cool things. I'll start with the one that I have very little to say about. and because I think my Rocket League content got kicked out of last week's because we lost the last couple minutes. So for those who won't know, because nobody else who listens to this could possibly be a Rocket League fan, Vitality won the EU Championships this past week, which was very exciting for me because they're my favorite team. And I felt very proud of them because basically there was this one team that's won everything all year, and Vitality were kind of considered like the old gods. Like, they're not good anymore, washed up. And then they just showed up for the final championship as second place all year and won. So I thought that was good. And it was fun to watch. The entire championships series last week was really good. But the actual thing I have more to say about is, this is tech related, the idea of just when you find the right abstraction for something and it just works the way you need it to. So I'll rant on this a little bit because it is tech related and dev related. Sometime in the last year and a half, I was going to give a time frame, and then I remembered that you are aware of how bad my time judgments are. So at some point in the last year and a half, since I started at Telmetic, I was tasked with adding event logging to our API that's like 6 years old. So we have this Django project, 6 years old. Basically had to go in there and add it without being super invasive to the point where like half the code becomes audit logging. So we need to make it reasonable. And that started it with, all right, we've got this event logging service that sits beside all our other services, and they're all going to just fire events in. It'll validate the events, make sure that they're the right shape, and then other services can ask for those events. And then I added the Elasticsearch querying on top of it, so you can ask for event types by a certain type and do all the cool stuff Elasticsearch lets you do. But the point is, we didn't want to just be manually writing out all these JSON payloads as Python dictionaries throughout all our code. So one of the guys on my team wrote this Chainable event builder that just allows you to, it's just a class you create an instance of, and you say it's like going to be like event builder.success, and that'll be a success log. And then you can say like with, and then you'll have like all your custom with methods. So like with user, and then this is the user, with request, and it'll say like stuff about the IP that sent it in or whatever. With department, and then you can say why it was affected, and you can pass in the diff of what changed. These sorts of things. And that was very useful, and it still works. Like a year later, we haven't really had to adjust it much. So that was like the right abstraction, and it's always very satisfying when I go back and use it, because it just never seems to be the case that you pick an abstraction and it ends up being a good one. So that's very, very useful. And then on top of that, I built a audit log class, and it does a bunch of the stuff that we found we were doing all the time on the basic endpoints. And so it was like, all right, let's automatically compute the diff, automatically gather up all the targets that were affected, automatically figure out what performed that action, and then I put it into a little decorator, and you can just put that. So I've got like a couple tickets I had for this sprint were like add event logging to these things, and you add one line where it's just a decorator. It's like generic audit logging, and you pass in what the event is. So it's like user updated, and that'll just automatically do all of it for you. And because I have some rules based on that abstraction where it's like it has to inherit from this class, which almost all of them do, and it has to be a basic CRUD endpoint, it has to return the object that was updated. These basic things, as long as they apply, it's going to work. And it keeps working after a year or so, and it's just so satisfying because it just is rarely the case. So
Damn.
A few of us all worked together, created abstractions on top of abstractions on top of abstractions, and they seem to be the right choice. So I'm just very happy about that.
Sounded more like a self-shout-out, but very impressive. Any recruiters listening to this or senior engineers, just know Nathan is the abstraction guy now.
No. I'm usually the one pushing against it. I'm like, we can't predict the future. We don't know what we think we know. And that's why in this case I'm so pleasantly surprised. That's all. Because it was what I was working on today. I was working back through this code. I'm like, I haven't touched this in months. Does it work? It still works. Amazing. Somehow code goes bad, and I don't understand really yet how that works, but I swear, you don't touch code and then it just starts breaking. You're like, this worked 6 months ago when we used it. Why doesn't it work now?
Wow, like
It's like Christmas lights.
almost like there's a debt attached to it,
Mhm.
right? I wish there was a term for it,
Yeah, I don't know.
but
Maybe we should do some more research, see if we can get an episode done on that.
yeah, on debt of code.
Mhm. What about you?
Okay.
What was your stuff from the past week?
Yeah, I mean, past week was I hung out with my friends in Victoria.
Ugh, gross.
I know. I went to get like ice cream with this guy, and he was just the most boring person on earth.
Yeah, he dropped his ice cream numerous times.
He did. He did. Tried to break a solid ice cream with a plastic spoon too. It was.
They should just give you better spoons.
And then he deflects it. Puts the problems on. There is no ownership on this guy, but
I disagree. And
but apparently
commit.
he disagree and commit. Yeah, but he doesn't. So but I had a great time. It was a very nice break that I needed to still be around friends, eat random junk food, not work out for a week. And yeah, just do my job. So it was kind of nice. And yeah, and then for my cool stuff segment for this week, I learned about this fact like 3 days ago, and I find it hilarious and very impressive. Where Samsung, when they're testing their phones, they have a robot which has a butt for testing how your phones will bend when you sit on them. So they test that before they ship those out, which is just the coolest thing ever. I'm just like imagining this butt robot like sitting like 100 times a day and just laughing because it's probably just the like half a section to preserve materials and everything. So yeah, so that was the cool fun thing. And then Tesla has an AI event next week. They announced it today. As much as I do sort of like, the things he does, I'm more excited because the stock may go up. And you know what happens when Elon Musk tries to mess with the stock market? Everything goes haywire. So ideally, I'd be on a vacation when that happens so I don't overtrade and lose out on money. But nonetheless, it looked like a very cool event.
Good stuff. Good stuff. Try not to lose too much money.
Yeah, I'll just go on a vacation, probably with the weird ice cream guy, and like go hang out and see what's up.
Makes sense. Makes sense.
Yeah, so tell me, weird ice cream guy, what do you know about S3?
I feel very on blast right now. Not liking the energy here.
Well, you know, like when you reach a level as such as being the favorite co-host, you have to also deal with the hate.
Right,
from
the haters,
internet.
yeah,
Yeah.
within.
From the people who promoted you.
Yes.
But yeah.
Yes. Anyway, S3. So
S3.
it is AWS's simple storage system. And the basics of it is that it's a giant, advertised as infinitely scalable object store that you can pretty much use for all of your content needs. So if you want to if you have some sort of payload, image, anything, you just want to stuff somewhere, you can probably just put it in S3 as long as you have a unique location for it. So everything looks like a folder structure, but really it's just a flat set of keys that point at files, and integrates with a bunch of stuff. So that's the basics of it. What do you want to add to that?
Yeah, no, that's pretty much what I had in mind. I would add that it's my probably second favorite AWS service. Yeah, S3, EC2 being the first one. If you haven't heard about that, go check out our last episode.
Before the last episode, we talked to Shopify, Anise, last week.
That's true, yes, yeah. Yeah, so the last episode where we talk about AWS stuff, that one. It's in the title, y'all know how to make it work, so go do it. But for now, yeah, S3 it has always blown my mind how systems like that exist. Because Even things like EC2, I have like a little architecture diagram in my head or some sort of expectation that sure you have like physical machines, you can virtualize environments, you have virtual desktops or whatever. S3, it's probably like billions of hard drives connected in some weird RAID manner, and it's global. So pretty much everybody in the world is sharing some sort of resources somewhere, and it's just insane to me because it's what zettabytes or even whatever higher number weird is not only does it provide you with all that crazy storage, but it also gives you all that, backups and RAID functionality and whatever you need. Like you can basically just say, I have this massive collection of movies I can throw at it, and it'll take it no problem. It'll back it up. It'll serve it real fast too. That's another thing I really love about S3 because it's just, and S3 has not sponsored this episode, so like I'm talking all of this just out of my love for how fast the service works for the amount of data it stores. Because if you've ever tried building a NAS server, a FTP storage, anything that deals with big data, it's a big pain in the ass, and it's really impressive to me how they do it at scale.
So what are some of the things that you use it for right now?
So okay, let's talk about different usages. So the very basic one, throw data at it. You have large media files, store it there. Any good architecture where you are storing large files or movies or even images, ideally you wouldn't be storing them in your database. So that's when you store them in places like S3, and then you store the S3 URL and path in your database.
Yeah, one thing that you can try if you're not familiar with S3 at all, that I think is a good way to just be like, oh yeah, it is as simple as it seems, is if you're using the AWS CLI, just start sending up a image, try to list the images in your bucket, see what's going on there, and just realize, oh, this is essentially just like it feels like a local file system when using CP commands and LS commands and just seeing what's going on. And yeah, you can just push and pull things and treat it like a file system, even though it's totally not.
Exactly, and that's the brilliant. Yeah, so I'll stop nerding over the storage part of it. Another use case that I really like is, again, as I mentioned before, you can create a FTP server out of it. So the great thing about S3 is not only you store objects and that you only have access to it, you can set up access control, you can even open it publicly to the world. So you can have a really large file torrenting, and you can store it on there and share the S3 URL. And unlike Google Drive or other places, I'm pretty sure you might not get DRM'd. Or I don't know, maybe you're a family fiend and you've created a video of everybody in your family and it's like 100 gigs and you can no longer put it on Google Drive. Go throw it on S3. On the free tier, you can probably just store it for free and like share it with everybody in your family. And that's the crazy good part. So so since it has the ability to share files across the internet, it's also a great place to store static websites. Anything on S3, you can have personal websites. The Do Better Club, this really good blog website, nwcalvang.dev. You can go check it out. It's also on S3, right?
It is, yeah. It's amazing how easy it is because they've baked that functionality in. So, a combination with previous things we've shouted out, GitHub Actions, there's some nice actions that are pre-baked that you can essentially run, and it'll just automatically configure your permissions for you, get the caching set up, and it's very easy to get a static website rolling on S3 because they have an option where it's use as static website, and it handles a lot of that stuff for you, so you don't have to worry about it. It's a great way to build your confidence with S3, or at least that's what it did for me.
Yeah, totally. And yeah, I think my confidence with S3 came from just using it as a storage place. But when I learned you can store static websites, it just blew my mind. I was like, of course, you can. And this makes so much sense. And it's just so fast. Again, just want to point out to that. It's globally somehow still load balanced, shared. So if I have something on my S3 bucket, depending on the location, it'll be faster or slower. Because even though they say it's accessible globally, buckets still are region based. So your data will still be somewhere on the US West 2 data center or wherever you choose to host it. But yeah, it's still really cool. And then throw CloudFront in front of those static assets, you've got yourself a lightning fast website.
Yeah, and if you've got a single page app, it's so easy. You just give it the the entry point file. You're like, this is where you start, and you give it an error file if you want. You're like, this is what happens if something goes bad. And that's pretty much it. You hook it up with Route 53.
Pretty much it.
You're done.
Yeah. You don't even have to use Route 53. I mean, you could. It's if you're already in the AWS space, you should.
Yeah,
probably.
I was using it for mine because I'd bought the domain on Google Domains. And so I had to pull that in. And that seemed like the easiest way to do it.
Yeah. Once you're in the AWS ecosphere, and things are much nicer and connected to each other.
Yeah, I should mention as well, it cost me like 50 cents to host 2 websites on AWS. So, and I'm sure it would go up if people actually went to my site, but not by much. It's just really inexpensive hosting if you just need to get a static website up.
Yeah, and for reference, it is again nwcalbank.dev. Tell your friends.
I haven't written anything. This needs to be one of my do better soon. Is add a new article. I have some ideas, but I get a bit self-conscious about the fact that it's like, well, I haven't added anything there in a while. Probably should.
It's like one of those worst cycles. I haven't added anything in a while. I should let it go, and then the fear just keeps building up because you haven't added anything in forever now.
Right, that's what happened with my YouTube channel. Like, the next video has to be good. It's been a year and a half, 2 years.
Is that built on the premise the previous ones are good?
No.
Oh, then what's the problem?
It's more so if you took this much time off, what were you doing? Clearly not getting good at making videos.
Yeah, that's fair.
Yeah.
I'm sure your loyal fan base will appreciate it. If you want some of the most wholesome comments in the dev community, go check out Nathan's videos on YouTube.
Yeah, people are very nice.
Yeah, but speaking of costs, the thing Nathan mentioned, if more people are visiting his site, it's probably the CloudFront pricing that's going to go up, because S3 only charges you for storage and some level of access. And that's another great thing about it. It's stupid cheap. You can store, I think this free tier gives you a couple 100 gigs of storage just for free. And then after that, if you need it completely access super fast, then it's not all that expensive. I don't know, go check their website. It's like dirt cheap. Or do you know it top of the head?
I don't. It must be fractions of a cent, because I think I pay 50 cents because it costs 50 cents to have Route 53. So it hasn't rounded up to the next penny.
All right, so there you go. And then it if you want to be even cheaper, it has another storage layer called Glacier, where you can basically just throw data and say keep it forever, and I don't need to access it quite as fast. And then you pay basically nothing.
Yeah, and there's even tiers to that too. So it's like, because I think the base one is 4 hours, something like that, minimum retrieval time, unless you're going to pay extra for it. And then there's something in the middle, and then there's like a 12-hour, something like that, for their deep archive as their minimum they'll take. So if you really don't need something for a while, like it's not a critical backup, you just want to store a lot of data, using those archives and Glacier offerings, another way to just make a cheap offering even cheaper.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, the way they've achieved this at scale, there's really no way you could host your own like hard drives and little server at home and achieve like the similar price point. I'm sure there's some website or blog comparing how many years you'll have to like host and run your own hardware to match S3's pricing over time. but we didn't do that homework because it's stupid and don't do it.
You tell them.
Yeah. I mean, of course, if you're too, concerned of the cloud and want to keep your data to yourself, you'll probably host your own storage. But, they're probably going to get that data anyways. We're all under surveillance all the time. Just
Resistance
use S3,
is
save
futile.
money.
Use
Yeah,
S3.
exactly. That should be their motto. Yeah. Stop resisting, use S3. And then little Jeff Bezos or somebody comes to thumbs up or something.
Just as the Vault boy.
As the Vault, exactly. You're just doing so good today. Yeah, so speaking of the pricing, let's talk about storage sizes. What can I do, Nathan? How infinite is this infinitely seeming place?
You mean
Are there
per,
any limits?
per object size? I was really not sure where you're going with this.
Just tell me the numbers.
All right, so the numbers I know about, I think if I remember correctly, we said it was 5 terabytes was the maximum size for an object, and if you want to go larger than 5 gigabytes, you have to do a multi-part upload. And alongside that, there's also things you can do like transfer acceleration for uploading and downloading if you're trying to optimize speeds. But as far as maximums go, those are the two big ones. So you may have situations where you still want to go with like a document database, a NoSQL database, if you have a lot of really tiny objects that don't all deserve all these globally unique keys. But if you have larger things, as long as they're under 5 terabytes, this is probably a good spot to throw it. So things like the larger images, all the videos you were talking about, like high quality videos, throwing those up there. And then if they are bigger, you just have to use multi-part upload, which I think the AWS CLI does automatically for you, or at least the SDK does.
Yeah, it's only you use the multi-part upload when you're doing the HTTP requests manually to upload, but if you're using the CLI, it does everything under the hood. You just say AWS S3CP, my 10 terabyte file, .jpeg. I don't know.
That's a lot of pixels.
And then that's a lot of pixels. It was compressed down.
Oof. This is a picture of the whole universe.
You should look at the PNG. And another on the note of being able to upload files through HTTP, this might be probably just a me thing, but I really like and appreciate the fact that they use put instead of post for uploading all these files, because that's the proper HTTP declaration. Unless, of course, if they used post when the first time you created and then subsequent uploads were puts, then I think I would appreciate it more. But I still like that it's puts, and it sort of makes sense because they version the uploads. So it's always you're updating the last element.
If you've enabled versioning.
Yes.
And
yeah.
This is a weird thing I know, because I had to know it. You can only add versioning with the root account. It's like 2 things that only the root account can do. Reset the password for the root account and add versioning.
Tell us more about the versioning. How does it work? What is it?
Yeah, so if you have, say you have a bunch of stuff already in S3 and you add versioning, it doesn't do anything to that. Those are still just one version. And if you remove versioning and you've been running versioning for a while, it's not going to go through and delete all your old versions. The way that it works is you can kind of think of it like a head on a Git branch or something, where it's like the current version is the latest version. If you delete the current version, that doesn't mean you delete all the other versions, and vice versa. So if you want to permanently delete a version, it will permanently delete the version, but if you delete the object, it's going to delete the version of that object. And again, just as you put things up, it will increment the version for you, and that's essentially taken care of automatically. You don't really have to worry about it. It's just a matter of if you were trying to manually prune out all instances of this file that you've ever uploaded, if you have versioning involved, you'll have to explicitly delete all those previous versions. I don't have much else to say about it. It works the way you'd expect.
Exactly. Just go delete the bucket if you really just want to delete everything.
That's actually something we haven't mentioned. They're in these things called buckets.
Explain to us how S3's structure works, Nathan.
Oh no. So as I mentioned, it's a flat object store. Conceptually, there are these things called buckets. And they're essentially like folders. That's what you can think of them as. And those have to be globally unique. And then you have these keys that give you a path looking thing to a file. But the path looking thing, again, is not a real file path. It's just a key. And you can list out your buckets. You can add, you can add bucket policies. This is a good thing for buckets. So if you want to manage all your permissions, which you should be, because S3, as you mentioned, is globally shared, a bunch of stuff that you really, unless you have a public website, you shouldn't be just leaving open to the public, because that's a good way to get your data breached. You should have bucket policies, and they used to have, they're not NACLs. What are they? They're some sort of permission list, but they're an older version that's super specific, and you set them on the buckets themselves. Access control list for buckets, but they're not called NACLs at that point, but something like that. Anyway, they have those as well. So if you want to be hyper specific, you can do that. But generally speaking, you'll create bucket policies that essentially say what is enabled and what's disabled, or allowed and disallowed, as far as like this action is allowed from this IP, and these otherwise it is always disallowed. Generally speaking, you should disallow as much as possible, and then if you open everything up, AWS is going to ask you, are you sure about that? And you check, make sure that if it is a public website, yes, that's fine, otherwise no. And just to be sure, probably just try accessing the stuff and make sure you can't. Just a quick sanity check. But yeah, I don't have a whole lot to say about buckets. They don't seem to be, other than conceptually, to me, they don't seem to be all that useful outside of slapping permissions on them. Do you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, no, they're just the logical grouping.
Yeah, okay.
The permissions act as chmodding a folder.
Yeah.
And it's just, you limit who can access what. Yeah, and then, the globally unique part is kind of important. So if you name your bucket test, it may not go through depending on how they're created, because they have to be unique across the whole AWS space thing. But I've never run into a problem so long because I name my objects properly. Yeah, I know.
La-di-da.
Yeah, it's like project name dash the usage dash something. I don't know. There's a pattern usually. Yeah. So yeah, nothing crazy on that. I would mention if we're done with the storage side of it, I think we can move on to the other great things S3 does.
Like what?
Like querying.
Oh yeah.
Querying.
So
yeah.
Suppose that you were using other services on AWS that produced a bunch of logs, and you said, I'm going to store these logs in S3 because it'll let you do that. You then may later want to query those logs so you can find stuff out about it and not just look at JSON, raw JSON. So they have this tool called Athena, which I've been told by a member of my team, the team lead, that it's a real pain if you haven't used it before, and it's very difficult to manage. But I've been told from this essentially AWS sales pitch course that I took that it's great and you should use it. So somewhere between there is the truth. But the point is, it allows you to create what essentially amounts to like database tables, and then you can just query your structured data. So if you have events from AWS services, it already knows how those are run, and you can, I think, just search them up, and they'll be like, this is how you query logs, and it'll automatically build the table for you, and you can write your queries to prune through those logs, see like all the logs of a certain severity level, these sorts of things. So do the sort of stuff that you would want to do with event logs, except you're storing them in S3, just as JSON. So that's Athena. Do you have anything to add?
No, yeah. So the thing I wanted to just mention right before that was most of the people and people generally when they look at S3 they do look at the fact that it's just a big data store. But yeah, the coring part makes it actually stand out and kind of awesome because yeah, there's Athena that lets you query all this data, convert them into tables, but then Amazon sort of backported it as well to Redshift, which existed at the same time as S3. I mean, Redshift's very newer than S3, but the querying feature was launched, I think, like 4 or 5 years ago for being able to look at the data. And it's an unbelievable amount of time you save by not having to ETL all your data back from storage into a database, pay for the S3 storage and the database storage, and somehow maintain the equivalency. You can literally just go into Redshift, give it a path to a S3 file, may it be a JSON format or whatever format, maybe it's just CSV formatted, whatever. And you can just say, you can just start writing a query, being like select columns, this data, and you can join data in S3 to tables you have in Redshift. Insane. This is all like great. This is what great data lakes are made of. Being able to query the data, just storing is not good enough. And that's what I love about it. It's the Athena Redshift integrations that you can run a whole bunch of queries, export data, and yeah, just the seemingly good integration between AWS services for yeah, all your data needs.
Is there any specific use cases you have in mind for Athena versus Redshift?
Not really. I think I haven't used Athena very much, but from the descriptions, it seemed like Athena was very much built just for like doing S3 and visualization on it and the storage, whereas Redshift is its own database, and it's made for mostly data warehouse stuff.
Yeah.
So it is supposed to be large scale data, crazy amounts of terabytes of information.
Yeah.
And you may want to do things like how there's always like summary tables for like big data warehouse data, and maybe you don't want to duplicate or enlarge the storage on Redshift because that's more expensive. So a good use case would be, I have a stream of information coming from a service or a bunch of subscribers that I am like subscribed to. They all push data into S3. It generates terabytes of data. And then I either have an AWS Lambda function or something in Redshift itself that goes in and queries all of this data, summarizes it in a way I want, and then stores it in Redshift for a much smaller memory and storage footprint. And then you can sort of think and treat the S3 part as the warehouse of the data warehouse, and keep Redshift for all the better features you get of being able to query, summarize, and yeah, get your data basically.
So is that using Redshift Spectrum or not?
I think that's what it's called. So it like Spectrum is just the
Spectrum is the application that they provide for querying S3 directly without having to load that data into Redshift. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
When you mentioned the
Yeah,
Lambda,
I
wasn't sure if
I forgot what name they gave it.
Yeah.
Like they made it part of Redshift, so I remembered you could just do like
I see. Okay.
from, and then you give it a path. But yeah, they launched it about 4 or 5 years ago, saying here's a new thing, go crazy, kids.
Right.
And we did. We were kids and we got crazy looking at it, and I was very happy with how it turned out actually.
Nice. Okay, that's reassuring. I've mentioned both Athena and Redshift, Spectrum, because we use Redshift for a bunch of our historical data, and mentioned both of those to solve a couple of our problems that I thought were well suited for those, and was told that they are hard to work with. So at least I know that they spark joy for somebody.
Yeah, I enjoyed Redshift. I have never used Athena. I've only looked at the docs and everything, so.
Fair enough.
Yeah, but yeah, that was the big thing I wanted to make sure I mention about S3 because it's awesome, and I oh yeah, and Actually, no, that's more EBS. Never mind. I think I've covered everything that I want to cover on the S3 side of things in my notes.
All right, so we got S3. You can just store stuff in it. You got FTP server. You got static website. We've got basically your data warehouse alternative. Archiving with Glacier. Is that everything? Did I miss anything?
No, because those are all S3 specific things. We don't even, and then we can mention like integrations it has with other services. Like you can integrate S3 with KMS, which is the key management system that AWS has, and encrypt your data at rest. You can encrypt it while storing. You can use different encryption policies within S3 to, when you send and retrieve the data, you can do it on the client's end on how you want to encrypt, decrypt data. Or you can just do it at S3 level. They provide you a whole bunch of options, and you can use the Amazon's key storage, and they all just integrate quite well.
Another random factoid I had to know, it does not encrypt the metadata for your object, so don't put anything important in there.
Ah.
So it will encrypt the object itself, not the metadata.
File name, file password, metadata.
yeah, exactly. Crap, I had something else I wanted to add before I thought of that. Oh, hooks. If you upload something, for example, to S3, or you put something into S3, you can listen for those hooks and trigger Lambda functions, for example. So the classic example I kept hearing over and over again throughout my course was something like upload the full resolution version of an image, triggers an triggers a Lambda function to generate a thumbnail that gets stored, and that'll be cached somewhere, and then you can let that data get destroyed at some point if you need to, because you can always recreate it, but it's automatically being generated through these lifecycle hooks. So you can hook those sort of things up. And again, when you're having everything within AWS playing nicely together, it's set up to do that, especially these core services, the EC2s, the Lambda functions, the S3s. Those are really well integrated, and if you use them, they will make your life easier.
Yeah.
Cool. I had no idea you were going to have so much enthusiasm for this. I was very concerned there was not going to be much to say, and then you just went off.
That's why I chose it, because this morning when you were like, what should we talk about? I was like, well, we've already talked about my favorite service. Let's talk about my second favorite service.
Let's go down the list.
Wonder if I have a third favorite. I think it would be the Beanstalk or ECS, one of the two.
Okay, yeah, Beanstalk. I just have bad memories of trying to make it work.
Beanstalk is just the post I posted today on our Instagram. You take off the cover and it's just EC2. That's all Beanstalk is.
Yes, I just get discouraged when the sales pitch is, and it just works, and then I try it and it doesn't. I'm like, oh.
You just need to do better.
Yeah, I should have listened to this show. I would have known better had I listened to this 2 years ago.
Perhaps we need to cover Beanstalk.
Maybe.
I don't know about the next one, but yeah.
Well, you got 150 services to choose from, so choose wisely.
Exactly. Maybe we'll pick up IoT, keep everybody on their toes.
Yeah.
Pick up a service we've never used and have zero experience with.
Yeah.
Yeah, but we can have like some experts over. I know some people, and now that we're officially doing guests on our show, maybe we'll have more of them.
We've had one guest, and
it was good. Yeah, it cut out, but technical difficulties. It was also in person, so I look forward to those again, because now you're back in a screen, and I don't know if you're the same Nathan anymore.
No, I got the hat.
It could be a deep fake.
Yeah, it's all a lie.
Yeah.
But anyway, Gyan, how was your week? What are your plans for next week?
Oh,
how are you gonna do better?
Honestly, I think it's my favorite segment of the show. Just the do better and did better .rip. So let's see. Last week I said or last week what I said got cut off.
I
in
filled
the
everybody
recording.
in. It's all good.
But it was just chilling with friends, as I mentioned in the beginning of the episode. Hung out with friends in Victoria, and yeah, it was just sort of what I needed. I didn't do anything productive, and I'm okay with that. Did not do better, but was happy.com. Uh, but now that I'm back in my normal routine groove, I'm gonna start doing better on. I'm gonna pick back up reading because I need to finish a couple of books, or at least 2 books I want to finish before I go on my vacation next month. So not a lot of time, a lot of pages. So we'll see how that turns out. And I'm going to learn swimming. I try to learn swimming every year and I fail. So I'm gonna try again this year. The only difference is I have a friend who's made it her summer goal to make sure I can float at the end of it. So now I'm like checking off 2 people's to-do lists by ensuring I don't die when I go in the water.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's inspiring teamwork.
Exactly. So I'm gonna be trying to do it once a week. So I'm gonna just make sure, I actually do it. And yeah, because public pools are sort of opening, COVID is disappearing, and yeah, well, I'm gonna be swimming in water, I guess.
That's where you do it.
That's where generally I prefer all my swimming happen, unless my boy Scrooge McDuck, if I can do it in the money, but I think that would really hurt because our toonies are pretty solid.
Yeah. Yeah, they do something different with the DuckTales coins. I don't know what's up with those.
Maybe it's one of those the chocolate ones,
I've never tried.
Peel the wrapper.
Yeah, I've never tried swimming through chocolate coins, so maybe it's
missing out, man.
Very different.
But when you're not swimming through the chocolate ones, what are you doing better at?
All right. So this one barely counts as a do better, but I'm still going to mention it because I got sushi with one of my friends and he didn't bail.
Wow.
It's more of a do better for my friends, but I was still happy about it. I was sitting in the sun. That was one of my other things I did well. I spent a lot of time out in the sun the last week. I just went to the beach a couple times and just sat there, which I never do, but I figured it's good for me. I should spend more time in the sun. So I did that a bunch, and then I was just sitting there, and I thought, you know what? I could go for some sushi, and I committed. It's like, if they all bail, because I messaged the top 5 people in my contacts for like local people who I recently have contacted. It's like, if they all bail, I'll still have to go because I agreed to do that this month. Fortunately, he didn't, so I got to go eat some sushi with a friend. Spent lots of time outside. Oh, and I had phone calls with a bunch of people from my family this past week, which that's unexpected. So I chatted with my sister, which that never happened. She called me. To be fair, I didn't call her, so I wasn't being that good of a brother. But she called me, we chatted, and I called my mom the other day, and I do that every few weeks, so that was fairly normal. I had a good chat with her. And I called my grandma, which I don't do as much as I should. So had a good chat with her. It's a nice family affair.
So the TLDR was you still suck, but they all did nice.
No, I called my mom and my grandma.
Okay.
My sister called me.
I'm pretty sure you said your grandma called you, but okay.
Well, if I said that, I misspoke because I called her.
Okay.
And I don't do that very often. So it was a good thing to do that I should do more. I am going to... Oh, somehow this didn't make it into my did better. But one of the things I said I was going to do better last week was do more stretching and things. And something I hadn't done very much in the past couple years that I used to do all the time, almost daily, was like just smashing my calves and quads with a lacrosse ball. And so I did that last night, and I forgot how great I feel afterwards. So I'm going to do that some more this week. That'll be another do better, is just get that back in the routine. Because I've done a lot of static stretching and things lately, but for some reason got out of the habit. And it's fun. Just throw on a YouTube video and just roll around on a lacrosse ball, and it feels miserable, and then afterwards feels really good. So do more of that. And this, yesterday, actually was the first day of the current phase of my diet. So over the course of about 12 weeks, I mentioned it a few times on the show, I dropped about 12 pounds in about 12 weeks from my winter fatness. And then I just hung out for about 6 weeks and did more strength training. So less volume work, more intensity work. And I got my numbers to sort of my minimums that I like to see, like, okay, I can still lift. And that took, like I said, about 6 weeks, which is enough time, I think, to sort of resensitize to training again, and gave me a good break. So I'm going to go back into higher volume work, more reps, more sets, and continue dropping calories a little bit. But with the increased volume, should be able to retain muscle and see how the next 2 to 6 pounds go. If I drop below 150, I need to stop because that's just too light. And hopefully I don't. So.
But then you'll be like competition ready ripped.
Yeah, but I'll be so small. It's just something, even though it's only 6 pounds, having having 1.4 at the beginning of my body weight just feels so wrong. I haven't seen that in years. So keep it at least 150 and above, and I'm sure that'll keep me plenty satisfied for a summer physique, and it makes lifting more fun because you get all the good mirror vibes going.
Mm-hmm.
So do that.
Just marring yourself constantly.
Yeah, pretty much. So those are the main things I have written down. Probably learn some more songs on guitar, something like that, but not committing to those. Those are the two big ones. Stick with my diet, do some more lacrosse ball work, spend time outside. That's it.
Those are good. It's summer. The more you're outside, take in the 2 months of summer we get in Canada, and then the rest of it will be depressing again.
I don't know. If you grew up in Ontario, out here just feels like we have summer all year. We have three like rainy weeks during the winter where it's just clouds the whole time, and then 2 months of mostly clouds around that. But
is that why everyone's depressed there?
No, I'm talking about it here. In Ontario, it's like 6 months of just everything's miserable. So I won't go into this too long. We need to end the show. But here's how the seasons work. I'll start in the spring. Everything's soaking wet. And it's just muddy and just wet. Not great. But the temperatures are okay. Problem is, it's 100% humidity or something stupid. So it just feels gross anyway. You get a beautiful half a month, couple weeks. As it dries up and approaches mid-20s, and then it goes to mid-30s and above for the summer, and you just cook. And then the fall happens to be when I was born, and it's just perfect. It's wonderful, it's great for about a month and a half. And then the temperature drops off a cliff, and you get your first snowfall, and that melts, and then you get another snowfall, and it melts, and you get another snowfall. Maybe it's white at Christmas, maybe it's not. And then January through, I don't know, May, you just have snow the whole time.
Yeah, I like BC. Let's just continue being here.
Yeah. BC feels to me like the best part of fall, except for in the winter when it feels like spring. So like it rains for a little bit, but otherwise it's okay.
Yeah, if you're listening to this and you live in Lambton County, move to BC.
Yeah, sure. Actually don't. No, just if just my family, they can move out here. I don't want too many Lambton County people out here. There's a reason I moved. Everybody's so nice out here. We don't need more Lambton County people on this side of the country.
That's true. Then they'll all be told that they're not being friendly during meetings. So.
That's what I was getting at, yeah.
Anyways.
That's the big takeaway. Everybody knows.
That's the big takeaway. Alright, so how we end all episodes on some weird awkward note? So this one could just be people in Lambton County are grumpy. Bye everyone.
Bye.